Picture this. Flames are just erupting over Kyoto. The sky above Japan's ancient capital is turning this deep, blazing red. You can hear cannons thundering, shaking the very ground, and the sound of swords clashing echoes through the streets. And inside a burning mansion, a young man, drenched in blood, makes one last desperate plea. So, who was this guy? What could possibly drive someone to this kind of end, especially at just 24? Why was he in this burning city, fighting so fiercely, so desperately to, in his words, set his country right? Well, to find the answer, we have to uncover the story of Kusaka Genzui, a kid who rose from total despair to burn his life like a torch, all for the future he believed in. Think about that. We do not seek war. Those were his last words, spoken right into the middle of all that chaos. I mean, those aren't the words of a warmonger, right? They're the words of a man with a vision, a desperate, unwavering vision. They tell us pretty much everything we need to know about his motivation, even as his whole world was literally burning down around him. Okay, so to understand how Genzui's story ends in fire, we really have to go all the way back to the beginning. We need to see how the boy was forged, because his entire life was, in a way, a battle against fate, fought in a Japan that was changing faster than anyone could keep up with. First, let's get a quick orientation, just so we're all on the same page. The Japan of Genzui's time was run by the shogunate. You can think of it as a military government that had been in charge for over 2 centuries. Genzui himself was from a place called the Choshu domain, one of many feudal territories, but a really powerful one that's going to become central to our story. Now, just try to imagine being a teenager and having your entire world fall apart. At 14, Genzui lost his mother. The very next year, his older brother died. And just a few days after that, his father was gone too. Boom, boom, boom. 3 people he loved just taken away, one right after another. So by the time he was 15, Genzui had no family left. I mean, most people would have been absolutely crushed, but not him. No way. He shaved his head, a traditional sign of resolve, and just declared himself the new head of the Kusaka household. He wasn't a kid anymore. That incredible loneliness didn't break him. It forged him into something like steel. So Genzui was brilliant. He was driven, but his life was about to find its true north when he met this radical, pretty unconventional thinker, a man who would become his teacher, his mentor, and eventually even his brother-in-law, a man named Yoshida Shoin. When Genzui first wrote to Shoin, he did not hold back. He was young, he was passionate, and he was absolutely furious about these Western powers forcing their way into Japan. His solution? Simple, violent. Kill the foreign envoys. He argued this would fire up Japan's warriors and strengthen the nation's defenses. And Shoin's response was, wow, it was brutal. He didn't just disagree with him, he attacked him, calling his ideas shallow, reckless, the empty theories of a student. But here's the thing, this wasn't just criticism. Shoin saw this fire in the young man, and he was testing him, pushing with everything he had to see if he would break or if he would push back. And Genzui fought back, hard. And in doing so, he won Shoin's deepest respect. He ended up enrolling in his school and even marrying his sister. But these good days came to a sudden, violent end. The shogunate, terrified of dissent, launched this massive crackdown. Yoshida Shoin was arrested and executed. Genzui was just 19, and the man who had given his life purpose was gone. His mission? Well, it was no longer just a philosophy. It became a personal vow. That grief just hardened into pure resolve. Genzui basically declared, fine, I'll do it myself. And fueled by his teacher's memory, the student stepped right out of the classroom and onto the political stage, ready to carry that torch and change the country himself. And this is where you really see his political genius just shine. Choshu's official policy at the time was all about cautious cooperation. But Genzui, he saw this as surrender. So he wrote this formal proposal, the Kairan Jogi, arguing for principled resistance. It was so logical, so powerful, that it completely overturned his domain's entire policy. He was just 21 years old, and he had changed the whole direction of a powerful government. Genzui's influence, it started spreading way beyond his own home turf. When he met this young, still unknown samurai named Sakamoto Ryoma, he shared this electrifying vision. Don't wait for the lords or the nobles. People with conviction, people like us, we have to act ourselves. And those words lit a fire in Ryoma, who'd go on to become one of the most famous revolutionaries in all of Japanese history. So Genzui was moving the pieces on the political chessboard with incredible skill, but events on the ground, they were starting to accelerate with this violent force, closing off any real path to a peaceful solution. The time for debate was ending, and the time for war was about to begin. Things started to spiral fast. In 1863, Choshu, led by Genzui, actually fired on foreign ships. In response, their rivals staged a coup and kicked Choshu right out of the capital. Then, in 1864, shogunate police massacred a group of Choshu activists in a raid. Each event was a point of no return. And that news, it hit Choshu like a match to dry brush. There would be no more talking. The calls for war were just overwhelming. Genzui actually argued for caution. He knew they weren't ready, but he couldn't abandon his comrades. So they marched on Kyoto, a force of fewer than 2,000 men. That's it. And this is the force that was waiting for them. The Allied shogunate army numbered over 20,000, maybe even 30,000 soldiers. The odds weren't just long, they were impossible. And Genzui, he knew he was marching to his death. Before the sun came up on August 20th, 1864, the battle began. And what followed was a tragic, desperate fight that would end in flames, but would also cement a legacy that helped create a whole new Japan. As the battle was lost and the mansion was burning down around him, Genzui's final act was completely selfless. He told his close friend to escape and warned the heir of their domain to stay away from the disaster in Kyoto. Even at the very, very end, his focus was on protecting the future, not on saving his own life. Gensu's body was never found, completely consumed by the fire. But his dream was not. Just 4 years later, the revolution he helped ignite succeeded. The shogunate fell, and the Meiji Restoration launched Japan into the modern world. His personal defeat became a national victory. His stature among his peers was just legendary. Saigo Takamori, one of the great heroes who literally founded modern Japan, said this about him. And remember, he was talking about a guy who died at 24. That kind of humility coming from a national icon just shows you how immense Genzui's presence and potential really were. In the end, we're left with his haunting final poem. It speaks of this profound loneliness of a visionary, right? Someone whose convictions are so far ahead of their time that only the solitary dawn moon can understand their cry. He was gone at 24, vanished into fire, with no grave. But that voice, crying out toward the dawn, it still echoes. And it leaves us with a question. What does it take to burn that brightly, even if it means burning out all too soon?